Great. Okay, let's get started. Thanks everybody for joining us. It's one of our monthly training calls with the OPH trainers. So welcome everybody. I see a bunch of fosters and maybe some adopters, look like mostly fosters. But this is a great topic because there seems to be a lot of puppies. Maybe there's always a lot of puppies at OPH, but there seems to be a lot of puppies right now, which is good, or puppies on their way, or pregnant mamas or whatnot. So puppies and adolescent dogs are always, it's always a good topic. So, oh, there comes Ginger. I will turn it over to Cinder to walk us through this. And again, we're recording, so this will be available to others as well afterwards, if you know people who would find this helpful. So Cinder, take it away.
Hello, I'm Cinder. For those of you who don't know me, I am a longtime trainer and shelter worker. I'm a current graduate student at Virginia Tech in the Animal Behavior and Welfare Program. And that's pretty much it. If you have any questions during this, feel free to just jump in. You know, unmute yourself and ask a question. Put your hand up if you feel like you have to put your hand up. Hopefully I will see it or Irene will see it. And I haven't actually looked at this PowerPoint for a while, so because we were supposed to do this in December, and so it's been a bit. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, puppies. Everybody loves puppies, but puppies are very difficult, and puppyhood is the time when it's most important that we do a lot of really appropriate interaction with these guys. We want them to get proper socialization with adults, animals, proper socialization with other puppies, with humans of all shapes, colors, sizes, ability levels. Anybody who has any kind of interesting items like canes or crutches, those kind of things. It's really great if we can get puppies introduced to those when they're babies. That way, when they are 8 or 9 months old and afraid of everything, and they encounter somebody with crutches, then they won't completely flip their lids. So let's look at the next slide. See what we've got.
Working on it. Yet again, I've got too many choices of buttons. There we go.
So these are the developmental stages identified right now for puppies. Their neonatal period, 0 to 14 days, which is pretty much they're under the care of their moms. If you're hearing weird noises in the background, it's because I have a puppy who's running a ball around the house and jumping on everything and flying through the air. So please try to just ignore that. But they're mostly under the care of their mom for the first 14 days. And if their mom is social, it can be a really good time for you to just gently pick them up, put them back. Let's get them used to having a little tiny bit of handling. Their transitional period from 14 to 21 days, it's really important that you start doing some things with them. They're going to want to look around, their eyes are opening, they're doing all sorts of puppy things. They're climbing around. Some of them are escaping. Thank you. Dog is bringing me things. And they're starting to move around quite a bit. And that's when, they're going to start, they're still not afraid of things. They haven't developed enough to be fearful of anything yet. And that doesn't really happen until about 8 weeks, 9 weeks. So during that transitional period, it's a good time to start handling them, introducing them to new items in their yards and their little pens, just touching them, touching their ears, touching their mouths, touching their feet, doing things that you're going to want them to be able to tolerate when they become adults. And that socialization period is really critical. So from 3 to 10 weeks, and a lot of puppies get placed right about 8 to 9 weeks, which can be really great for bonding with their new families, but can also be really problematic because they do tend to have a fear period right about 8 weeks. They might be just learning that things are scary at the time that they're going to a new home and getting all sorts of new things happening in their lives. It's really nice to help to start to prepare them before that time, like feeding them in little separate spaces, giving everybody a little turn in the crate without their siblings, take a little nap in the crate, do some other things without all of their siblings, because they're going to be leaving their mom and their siblings at some point. And then that juvenile period, 10 weeks to sexual maturity, which is where I am with this boy. He is about 9 months old. And adolescents of all species are really difficult. They are physically maturing. They do not have the prefrontal lobe maturity to make good choices. And they're also at a point in their lives when they're separating from all of their baby stages and puppy stages and teenage child stages. And they do things, they have a lot more risk-taking behavior. They'll engage in risk-taking behavior. They'll make bad choices. They will push back on things that you know that they know, or you're relatively sure that they once knew. And so adolescence can be very difficult. And with puppies, in between that time of 8 weeks and 8 months, if they don't have regular social interaction with humans, they tend to be fearful of humans after that time. So even if people socialize puppies when they're babies, if they never meet anybody between 8 or 10 weeks and then 8 months, they may still be really fearful of humans and other strange objects to them, you know, cars, hats, stairs. Excuse me, sir. All right, let's look at our next slide.
Working on it.
Yep. And the social maturity, you may notice that dogs stop being as interested in playing with other dogs and become much more selective. And that would be probably the biggest thing that you would notice with social maturity. So the neonatal period, sleeping, nursing, reliant on their moms, whining and grunting are their main vocalizations. But as you can see, this person is gently handling the puppies. That does help them to, you know, they can smell at that age. They usually have their eyes and ears closed, but they can smell you. And so getting used to smelling humans as well as just mom can be really helpful. And understanding, excuse me, getting the feeling that humans are not going to hurt them. Here you are, sir. Have a bone. Okay, next slide. This transitional period, this is the busy time. They have rapid neurological growth and change. So their eyes are opening, their ear canals are opening, they can walk around and go to the bathroom on their own. They start to interact with their moms and their litter mates more than just nursing and pushing everybody out of the way. So this is a really important time. We want them to have really good experiences with humans and to, you know, start building that good association with people, that when people are around, good things will happen, nothing bad is going to happen to them. And this can be a good time to actually introduce them to some children, some people who may look different, anything like that. They're still very tiny, but they really are, their brains are developing like crazy and they're learning like crazy. So it's not a bad time to start getting a little bit of social time in. And they are still protected by their mom's immune system. So they shouldn't, you know, if you have people come in, don't let them walk in the puppy pens, have them wash their hands, have them handle them carefully, but there's no reason not to do that unless the mom is really, really stressed and not wanting. All right, next slide. The socialization period. This is a really big time for them as well. So their senses are fully developed. They can smell, they can hear, they can see you. They are not afraid of anything yet. So they're exploring and having big adventures. They're starting to have social interaction, like real social interaction with their siblings, running and jumping and bouncing around. I mean, they're usually a little bit floppy and bobbly, but but they're doing all of the things that they'll be doing as adults. They're building their social relationships. Their teeth are erupting, so they're chewing on everything, including mom and their siblings. You might get some crying, or mom might start. This is when mom starts weaning, because they start getting teeth and she starts telling them to go away. And so they will start weaning around 7 to 8 weeks. We really want, when you're weaning puppies, when you're starting them on solid foods, you usually start with some gruel or some, gooey, baby foody kind of things. Giving them separate spaces to eat. They'll all gather around a bowl, but make sure that everybody can get to some food. You don't want to have a lot of competition for food at this age, because this is when they will start doing things like guarding food. And if we start at the very beginning with avoiding that, then we are much less likely to have issues with it later in life. So, and all kinds of new experiences. So we'll put new toys, new sounds, things that they'll experience when they're big dogs, vacuum cleaners, blow dryers, and lots of things to teach them that interaction with humans is great. Yeah, and this is from Jensen. Inappropriate socialization during this period can sometimes lead to fear-induced behavioral problems that persist into adulthood, and in many cases are resistant to modification. Because if you terrorize and terrify these baby puppies, they are going to get that initial idea that humans are terrible, and it's going to take a lot to change that later. That's where they are, and they're thinking that everything is scary. That's definitely not what we want. We want them to think that people are great and they want to be with us all the time. All right, next slide.
Cinder, real quick, do you have an opinion about wrestling with little puppies?
Wrestling, like just kind of,
like a lot of times, probably guys more than girls. They want to play rough with the puppy, like kind of like push their head around a little bit. I've heard a couple different things about this. That's why I wanted to get your opinion.
It really depends on their ability to read body language and the puppy's, willingness to do that. Some puppies really kind of enjoy being tussled around, but you really do need to be gentle and not frighten them. And sometimes it's hard for people to discern if they're scared or if they're playing. So, if you're reading their body language and playing with them gently and giving them, if they always have the choice to move away and not interact with you, that's going to be huge. Giving them some agency and autonomy in what they're doing is really helpful. And, at this time, you can also work, people should really probably focus more on doing like husbandry type things. Pick up the puppy, look in the puppy's ears, look at the puppy's teeth. Oh, my puppy just fell off the couch. And make sure that, they are having really positive interactions with people. However, when you do wrestle with puppies and play with puppies, it does sometimes help with their bite inhibition and learning that, human skin is very soft, not like dog skin. So they can't bite us as hard as they would bite their siblings and their moms. And when they're really small, they will still respond to like a yelp sound, but they will come right back to biting if you don't redirect them to something else. So if you're playing with puppies and they're nipping, they are learning that your skin is tender and that they can't really put their teeth on humans. So if they're nipping and you say, yay, and they back off, give them something else to do right away, because they're not going to stay backed off. They're just going to stop for a second. So it does work, but only at a certain age and only for a second. And yep. Did that help?
Yes, that did clear that up. Thank you.
It was kind of a maybe answer sometimes.
Cinder, you mentioned that, like bad behaviors learned that young linger into adulthood. Is separation anxiety starting that young, or does that come later?
It can. There has been some research that some I mean, all puppies are going to have some separation distress when they're taken away from their moms and their siblings, which is why it's really great to practice having them be on their own before they get adopted. But there have been some cases with very young puppies who did have true separation anxiety that needed treatment. Most puppies, I mean, I think in the overall dog population, about 25% of dogs that you see with separation distress or separation anxiety issues that are bad enough to require treatment. And I think a small percentage of those have been puppies. So there are some that have been medicated and gone through treatment programs. And because some of that is genetic, you may get some of it from mom or dad, or some of it's epigenetic, and the mother has some nutrition or high stress levels. These can reflect that in their behavior as well. But most puppies will cry when they go off on their own the first time. Much like moms when their kids go to college. And puppies do need continued socialization up to and through 8 to 10 months. So, meeting another dog once, or, meeting a person with a walker once, they need quality socialization, but they also need some quantity. They probably need to experience things a couple of times, 2, 3, 4 times. In social situations with other dogs or with people that they're probably going to encounter fairly frequently, like children or older people, you probably want to try and set them up to meet those people on a relatively regular basis, once a week, every 2 weeks, something like that, until they're adult. Excuse me, that's mine. Thank you. Any questions about that? Let's look at our next slide. Social maturity at 18 to 24 months. And we'll spend a whole lot of time talking about adolescence after we get through the slides. But so at 18 to 24 months is when you're going to see your dog might exhibit some different behaviors towards other dogs, towards strangers, towards new situations. They may become more selective. They may become less interested in playing with other dogs, or, girl dogs may only want to play with silly boy dogs. Boy dogs may only want to play, well, boy dogs usually want to play with everybody forever, but some dogs do become more selective. You might also notice more like house guarding sort of behavior, territorial behavior. They're more concerned about people coming to the door. They're more concerned about the mailman. They've had a lot more success with chasing away, in their mind, the mailman, the UPS guy, the FedEx guy, anybody who comes to the house, and then they bark and that person leaves. They consider that a win. So you may see more behavior. And they are really, their personalities are, so they've kind of become the dog that they're going to be as adults. They're not really puppies anymore, and they've reached sexual maturity and they've reached adulthood mentally, one can hope. And you will see them respond differently. Like some people will say, like to play as much. And they do need a lot of sleep. Dogs all need a lot of sleep. And I think we understand that with puppies more than we do with adult dogs. So, people are surprised that their dogs will sleep for 16 hours a day, but that's pretty typical. There are always people who, when they have a holiday from work or they're home for the weekend, and they'll call in on Monday to the vet clinic and say, my dog is really lethargic. He slept like all day. And a lot of times it's just what your dog does while you're at work. So it can be it can be very disturbing to people to think that their dogs sleep that much, but they typically do. Now at this time, if you haven't really done any socialization, your dogs are naturally neophobic, afraid of new and scary things, because they're a predator, but they're also a prey species. And so they do, try to protect themselves from scary new things. And all new things are scary in some way, or at least until they prove that they are not scary. So remedial socialization at this point, you may have to really structure any socialization for dogs old or over 2 years old. And that can be a lot more difficult than working with puppies who are just interested and exploratory and not afraid of anything. All right, what have we got next? Can you stop pestering me, sir? Positive socialization. So everybody talks about socialization and that socialization is good. We want to make sure that we are providing positive socialization. We want the puppies to have good experiences with everything new, and we want everything to be within their comfort zone. We don't want them to be afraid, even afraid, just like that makes them feel afraid. Which is why they often retreat long distance away, because food makes everyone, particularly growing puppies, and keep them, we'll set up a lot of socialization for puppies so that they're not just meeting random dogs on the street and going to the dog park where we don't necessarily know that other dogs are going to be appropriate behaviorally to play with puppies or even like puppies. A lot of adult dogs think puppies are gross, so they will not, like, ew, I hate puppies, and they just don't want to play with them or interact with them, and that's fair. That's, the prerogative of adults. Some adult dogs are super great with puppies, but if we don't know, probably we don't want to let them interact without, very careful supervision. And same with people. Everybody wants to pet your puppy, but when they're adult dogs, we don't want to stop for our dog to get petted by every person that they see. And when they're adult dogs, people don't want to pet them that much. So working with them and teaching them that, yes, you can greet people, but only when people are interested in greeting you. And here's how we're going to structure that. And, having people that we know have not been with sick animals, that we know will handle them carefully, that we know will follow our instructions, come in and handle and pet and pretend to be a vet or pretend to be a groomer or whatever. That is going to be much better than just taking them out and letting everybody in the neighborhood pet them and taking them to the dog park and putting them in a situation where we really don't have. Any questions about that? And socializing with other dogs, which is super important with little puppies. So puppies have passed the time when the vet will tell you, I hope most vets will tell you to stay home until your puppy is fully vaccinated at 16 weeks. Puppies should be going out, meeting other dogs in safe, clean situations. They can go to puppy socialization classes where everyone has been vaccinated and the room has been people over with puppies and adult dogs that we know are good with other animals and have been vaccinated and we know are not ill. And that's fine. If they've had any shots at all, when they're very small, they're still nursing. They have their mom's immune system. They have their mom's immunity. When they are a little bit older and we've given them their first vaccines, they are typically pretty safe to go out. More animal end up being returned. They didn't have appropriate socialization when they were small, then animals get sick and die from going out with other puppies. So socialization who have been vaccinated and are under medical care is just fine. They should start when they're, 8 weeks old, 7 weeks old. That should work out just fine. And with both puppies and adults. And we should watch the puppies when they're socializing with other puppies so that they're not being bullied. And, typically playing in small groups or pairs is better than a giant puppy free-for-all. Right, let's look at our next slide. These are the behaviors that you want to see the puppy engaging in when they are out socializing, when they're meeting new people, when they're seeing new things. You want to see a soft, wiggly, bouncy body. You want to see them play bowing, boinging around like crazy little bunnies. They might do some barks and play growls, but they're not going to be cringing and slinking and down low and real growling. And you'll know the difference. It's pretty clear with puppies when they're growling because they're afraid, or when they're growling because they're just shaking a toy or playing. And you want to see that in other dogs that they're being introduced to or playing with as well. The other puppies, you want to see everybody bouncing around and playing, not cringing, not ganging up on anyone, not chasing a puppy who doesn't clearly want to be chased. There are dogs that love to be chased. There are some that love to throw themselves on their back and have everybody pile up on top of them. One of the things that you can do if you're concerned about the way puppies are playing is do a consent test where you'll remove both of the puppies from play, or the puppy and the adult or whatever. And whoever you think is being bullied, turn that animal loose. If they go directly back to their friend and try to re-engage in play, then they're probably doing okay. If they don't want to play and if they want to stay away from that dog, then respect that choice and don't force them back into that situation. And that goes for adult dogs too. Yes, take your hoof over the top. All right, next. These are behaviors that tell you to stop. Stop. Don't introduce, don't get closer, don't, make sure that you move the puppy away from whatever is scaring it that you were trying to introduce. We never want to force them into situations where they're afraid. So if your puppy is cringing, crunching down onto the ground, if they're slinking, if they're hiding, a lot of times if they're peeing, puppies pee all the time, but if they're cringed down and peeing, it's more that they're afraid than that they're just so if they're hiding, if they're running away, if their tail is tucked way under, if they're barking when they have a low posture and they're and backing away, and backing away, then you really want to start a lot slower with whatever has scared them. Like if it's the vacuum cleaner and it's turned on, turn it off. Leave it sitting in the corner of the room for a couple of days, let them kind of explore that way. Then move it to the middle of the room, let them explore it, not being turned on. Then let them start in another room and you turn it on, give them some snacks, make it a much slower introduction and much less scary. Vacuum cleaners, they eat dogs, in case you didn't know. Lots of dogs. So anything that they seem really afraid of, start very slowly, start at much more distance, and don't try and, if they're just absolutely terrified, just give it up for that day, start again the next day. All right. Any questions about that? Some puppies, you'll see some fearful behavior, but they will immediately bounce back and go check out whatever it is. They might startle and go, oh my, and back up. but then they might run over and check it out. And that, at that point, you're probably just fine. You know, give them, call them back away and go on with your day. But if they're really terrified, just stop. All right, next slide. So many things. And there are often there are a lot of lists that you can get. There's Ultimate Puppy has like a 5-week program where they'll send you an email every week about your puppy. And it is free, so you can definitely look at that. The book, there's a new book out right now called, what is it called? Puppy Socialization. What is it and how do you do it? And I think I put it up on the Facebook page a couple weeks ago. It's really great. I really enjoyed reading Professionals Guild right now about it. There are so many things that, you know, you don't really think about, but you want to start when they're small with these things. Wheelchairs, canes, hats, people, bikes, skateboards, scooters, uniforms, children, toddlers. Toddlers are terrifying to dogs. They're unpredictable. They don't move. They don't have the same kind of motion and body outline that adult humans have. So it's really important for dogs to meet toddlers and small people. They don't have to meet directly, but to see them, you can lurk outside the playground and give your puppy treats for looking at all of the scary toddlers. Strollers, vacuum cleaners, any kind of conveyance that makes humans look like they have wheels or like they're not moving in a normal way seems to really disturb a lot of dogs. Carpeting, rugs, linoleum, stairs. My sweet boy here came to me a couple weeks ago, and he's 9 months old and had never gone up and down stairs apparently. So it took us a few days to get through that. A few days and a lot of treats and several times of carrying up and down the stairs, which he's going to be too big for really soon. So I'm glad that he picked that up fairly. And other kinds of dogs of different sizes and shapes. You know, some dogs, I had a friend who had boxers, and her dogs had only other boxers who were friends. And when they met dogs that were not boxers, they were like, what is that? So it took them a long time to greet and understand how to play with like German Shepherds and my other Aussie. And so it's really important that they see, you know, small dogs and big dogs and funny shaped dogs and dogs with squished noses and dogs with pointy noses and dogs with floppy ears and dogs with up ears. Cats, kittens, particularly if they're going. Lots of people have cats and dogs, and if you're going to want your dog to socialize with cats, you want to start that young. Chickens, rabbits, horses, if they're going to be somewhere in the country, or if you think you might ever go to the country. I've seen dogs that just lose their minds barking at horses through the window because they've never seen them. They're in the car going crazy when people are trying to go on a trip. And that can be problematic. Wobble boards, climbing items. You can make a wobble board really easily with a old sock with a tennis ball in it stapled to the. Works great. Things to climb on, water, the pool, bathtub, grooming tools, body handling. You know, we want to be able to look in their ears and look in their teeth and pick up their feet and, you know, pull pokey things out of the bottoms of their feet and trim their nails. So doing all of that, making it fun, lots of snacks and lots of snuggles, and the opportunity to get away starting when they're very small is going to make it so much easier when they're adults. Right, next slide. Here we go. We're good. So that we do give people, when we send out their packets, they get some information on Zach George's YouTube. Kiko Pup is Emily Larlam. She's a really great trainer, and she does very clear videos on how to train, why to train, what we're working on for general dog ownership and for fun things like tricks and obedience, all kinds of fun stuff. She also has a really great tutorial on how to paint your pet's portrait. So that's kind of fun too. And Zach George, he has a lot of things on bringing home a new puppy. Ultimate Puppy, Pet Professional Guild has a lot of things. I think they have a whole course for puppy owners and, you know, puppy guardians, puppy care people. The book Puppy Socialization, What It Is and How to Do It, which is great. It's the Kindle version, I think is like $8 and definitely worth getting. Perfect Puppy in 7 Days is Dr. Sophia Yin's book about puppies and how to get them going. And then the American Veterinary Society of Animal Behaviorists, their statement on socialization, they have a position paper on socializing young puppies and dogs and what is the best things for them to do and at what ages. So that's very helpful as well. I think that's all we've got on the PowerPoint. So Lori wanted to talk about adolescents and all of their difficulties. Is there anything specific that anybody has questions about for little puppies or for adolescents?
And feel free to either put things into the chat or also, of course, go ahead. We're a small enough group that you can also just speak up.
Mark, what are you doing? What are you doing? This is. Oh my.
Well, Cinder, I'll just start you off. Maybe this will entice some people to speak up with their questions. I think one of the biggest struggles that I hear from a lot of people is their adolescents being jumpy and mouthy and working on that behavior. So what input do you have for people to work on that behavior, since it's a really common behavior for adolescents?
Yes, jumpy, mouthy behavior. So one of the things, if you work with them when they're puppies on, you know, sitting or 4 on the floor for greeting, that's great. But you will probably still get some jumping and mouthing when they become adolescents. And the best way to work on that, the problem with jumping and mouthing is that it's very reinforcing for them to make contact with you. And so even if it's only once in a while, or if it's, you know, when you're not wearing your work clothes, or or when you happen to come in the door not prepared to get them to mind their manners and they're bouncing around, that intermittent reinforcement is really valuable to them. So the best thing that I have found for working on mouthing and jumping is making sure that you have management in place at the door, which is when you're going to get a lot of it, a lot of mouthing and jumping. Make sure that if you're having guests over, the dog is managed, put away in another room, behind a gate, tethered with someone holding them, or tethered to a large heavy piece of furniture. And I have people work on the mouthing and jumping with negative reinforcement. So putting the dog behind a gate where they cannot make contact, approaching. If the dog is jumping, you're going to turn and go away. And then you can come back and go more slowly, wait for them to be on the floor. What we want to do is teach them that a person approaching is a cue to them to sit or stand with 4 on the floor, or whatever greeting behavior you would like them to have. So you're not going to get to them, you're not going to pet them unless they have all 4 feet on the floor. And then we're going to pet and pay off heavily, lots and lots and lots of reinforcement. And we're going to make sure that they're managed at other times of the day if people are jumping. Also, we often see a lot of mouthing and jumping when they are tired. So like toddlers, they get overstimulated and over aroused when they're tired. When they get to the point of, I'm not tired, I'm not tired, and they're biting and grabbing your hands and running around the house like crazy dogs, they may just need a nap. You know, just because they're teenagers doesn't mean that they couldn't use a good nap. So we will make sure that they are fed, watered, have been to the bathroom, and then they are going to go into their personal space, their crate, their X-Pen, their bedroom, whatever you have, where they are removed from everyone. And we're going to give them something good to chew on and have them take a nap for a short period. I mean, what usually happens is they'll cry and gripe and moan for 5 minutes, and then they pass out and sleep for about an hour or two. So keep your eyes open for tired behavior. Keep your eyes open for, a lot of people see this kind of behavior at specific times of the day, like when you're trying to make dinner, or you're trying to get everybody out the door to work or school, or you're trying to have a Zoom webinar. And then we have puppies stealing everything off the table. So if you're noticing it at specific times of the day, put some management in place for those times of day. If you know that the puppy is going to go crazy, that the adolescent is going to drive you nuts while you're trying to make dinner, make sure that they have something to do with their mouth and are in an area where they can't bother you. All right, we're not going to steal everything off the table. That's just rude. Got a crochet hook and a speaker and a clicker and a pen. So yeah, make sure that they have things to do and put them in a space where they are set up for success, so they can't just harass you during that time. And then they'll learn that there are other things to do during those times. You get it a lot when you're on the phone too. And some people, when people work from home, it happens a lot then. So you may want to tether the dog to you or to a piece of furniture and reinforce the behavior that you do want, like laying on the mat, chewing on something that they're allowed to chew on. And thank you. I'll take that pen.
Cinder, we appreciate you doing a live presentation of hyper puppy behavior during the webinar. It's actually very helpful for the call. So there's a chat question. I want to quickly ask one question about that tethering thing. I've had several dogs who could chew through a leash in seconds, literally seconds.
Yeah.
So I know one person, a foster, got it's a metal leash with a plastic coating. Which the dog couldn't chew through. Do you have any suggestions about that sort of thing, about chewing through, tethering, any things you suggest using? And then we can take the chat question.
I have used like there are the ones that people get for outside that are like an airline cable with plastic coating. Those work great. I have made tethers out of airline cable that you can get at the hardware store. Just because, you know, once they figure out that they're not going to be able to chew through it, they just don't even bother anymore, especially if you give them something good to chew, like a Kong or a yak cheese or a bully stick or something delicious that will be more fun. So, yeah. Some people just use the old metal leashes, although if they do continue to chew, they can damage their teeth on those.
Thanks. And then we do have a chat question from Mel. Any tips on leash training? Many adolescent dogs in rescue do not have much experience on a leash. That's true. And it's very difficult to redirect a 50-pound dog when he or she sees squirrels and potential fur friends.
Yes, it is. So I like to do a lot of leash training in the house where there's not a lot of exciting other things to do. I start just with walking around in a room that's relatively small and enclosed. Give treats for staying close. Then we'll put the leash on, give treats for staying close. Treat before they get out to the end of the leash. Get them really comfortable walking next to you before you try to go outside and do things that are super exciting because there's grass and squirrels and pee and other dogs and humans and every exciting thing in the world in the environment. Controlling your environment is crucial when you're trying to keep their attention on you, especially with adolescents, because they just squirrel, squirrel.
Cinder, just to follow up on that, you know, the standard is treats, 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 but for the dog that isn't food motivated, any tips there?
Yeah, if they are interested in toys, you can use toys for sure. And it can be really nice to use a tug toy when you're trying to walk them, because you can hold the tug toy like up against your body with just the fluffy part next to you, and that'll keep the dog right next to you. And then you can, you know, kind of direct them a little bit better, and they're not so focused on the feeling of the leash on their harness or their neck. So toys are always great. Being able to go and do things like sniff or chase a squirrel if you're feeling through a squirrel. There is something called the Premack principle that Dr. David Premack came up with. And basically what that says is that having the opportunity to do something really reinforcing is a reinforcer for doing something that is not all that reinforcing. So if they walk really politely with you, or if you get them to look at you and get their attention, then let them say, go sniff or go chase, or, you know, if you're in an enclosed area and you can just let them go run, that is super reinforcing and they will remember that. It's also really nice to use if you have a yard and you have a dog that wants to bolt out the door. You can get them to sit and wait for a second, then send them bolting out the door. That's hugely reinforcing for that sitting and calming down. Yeah, any kind of environmental rewards can be really helpful.
Can you kind of walk us through? So I have a very calm adolescent, and then I have a very happy and bouncy adolescent. And so, I mean, he's like kangaroo at the back door. And so we've been working on, you know, down and calming down before I open the door. And bless his little heart, like he's really trying. But you know, like he gets that 2.5 hold, and then he's, you know, and so how do you start extending the calm period?
I like 1/8 of a second at a time.
Yeah. But he's trying, like he's honestly trying, and he's looking at me, and then like,
Yeah, I mean, really, you just have to, it has to just be those tiny increments, and you might have to kind of ping pong it back and forth. It's like if you get one really good weight, then the next time it's like 1/2 second and go.
okay.
Yeah, lots of times it's just that practice and tiny increments at a time.
Tammy and others, I was hoping we'd see more of your foster dogs on screen. So if anyone wants to tip a screen, I know
My
Ginger-
foster dogs are sleeping and behaving well right now.
Okay, then we don't want to mess with that. We won't mess with that. Okay.
Wait, can you see this one? Where's this one? Wait, come here, Avery. Come here, sweetie. Oh, you're so good. I know. And then here's,
Oh.
wait, let me see if I can find Kunkel. So Kunkel's my super happy one. He's the most adorable one. I took him for a 2.5 mile walk right before this. So yeah,
Okay. Smart.
And because I didn't listen to this first, what I have taught him by not practicing in the house first is that when we're out on a walk and mom says stop pulling, you run a quick circle back to check on mom, and then you go back to pulling. But he's very good. He always does that little circle back to me.
Yep. So one of the things that I work on with that is to keep them from going back to the pulling. I'll use a clicker or a word, and I will let them get part of the way out on the leash and then click right then and have them come back to me for the treat before they ever get to the end of the leash. So then your circle gets smaller and smaller, and then they're next to you.
Sure.
Great. And actually, Jacqueline, you had a question. Do you want to just ask it verbally rather than me read it? That seems sort of
Yes. We have 2 dogs. One is a bit over 1 year old, probably nearing 2 now, that we adopted much later. It's family dogs here. Then our OPH buddy, who's been with the family for about 6 years now. And anytime we come home, she's making sure she's the first to greet us. She's butting him out of the way. She's getting in his face. I've done some like behavior tests where if we're just in the house and all of a sudden I start talking very uppity to Buddy, she will get very upset. She'll jump in my face, she'll butt him out. And we're trying to balance that jealousy properly with her. It's just really difficult because he does get really upset. And at times he'll kind of angrily play with her just to kind of put her back in her place. We're just really struggling with how to deal with like redirecting that, because it's like a come home greeting. It's a give Buddy attention kind of thing between the two dogs. It's
So-
extreme jealousy, pretty much.
So what exactly? So she likes to push him out of the way.
Yeah, and I can film it. She literally just did it to me like 5 minutes ago. So if I
Oh.
go up to Buddy and I'm petting him or just talking to him, she'll kind of butt him out. She'll push him aside and she'll make sure she's the center of attention. She does it when we come home, you know, you talk in your we're home voice when you greet them, and she just gets she cannot let us say hello to him first. Even when we walk her, she has to be ahead of him. She's a very sweet dog. It's just the puppy in her, I feel like we're trying to redirect. I really don't know how to
And
redirect this.
does he not like that? Or does he?
No, he's very sensitive. He gets very upset, but he's alpha dog. So he kind of over time, he'll just start like chasing her in the backyard. If we let them out right away, he'll just chase her and let her know like I'm faster than you, I'm bigger than you. He'll definitely put her in her place appropriately, but she still does it.
Yeah, that's pretty, I mean, that's pretty normal dog behavior. It's hard to, you can just ignore both of them when you first come in and let everybody calm down before you even interact with anybody. That's probably going to be your best option. And you can work on, having everybody sit and get a treat, and, you get your treat right now, you get a treat as well, but you're not going to push around and get his treat. So you're going to sit on this side and you're going to sit over here, and you just kind of work on some basic behavior stuff with them together.
And it's hard because, she's still very young. I don't know if it's like part of her excitement when we talk about jumping, because she's doing that too. She's hopping all over me. Her paws are up. It's constant jumping. So it's part of the excitement, but also all about me excitement.
Yeah, and that's also pretty normal. So probably ignoring them completely until the excitement of everybody showing up is past. And I know that's hard because we all want to, we're excited to be home too. So we want to greet everybody and see everybody, but sometimes it's easiest if you just come in, act like nothing's going on, change clothes, do whatever, and then when everybody's been like, oh, okay, well, mom doesn't even care that we exist, then you can go and greet everybody and talk to them and have some fun time when you're more able to structure what's going on.
Thank you. We'll try it.
So we're down to just a couple minutes left. Do people have any final questions for Cinder? Parting observations?
Krista, did I miss anything?
I don't think you missed anything. I think something that just kept coming to my brain when you were talking about the importance of socialization and all the different types of socialization. Something that really struck me was, you will not believe the number of times I hear from people, oh yeah, my dog loves other dogs. It grew up with this dog, blah, blah, blah. But that dog has only known this other dog that it grew up with since puppyhood. So then when they tried to bring it, I actively work at a shelter. So then when they tried to bring this dog that supposedly loves other dogs and plays well with other dogs to meet this other dog, it really turns out that they only knew the dog it grew up with. So that's why it's so important to introduce them to different dogs, and let them have those positive experiences with other dogs outside of the home, because being socialized with one other dog does not equal my dog is good with other dogs.
Right. And it's really hard for that dog when the older dog passes away too. If they only have one dog friend and they've only lived with that dog forever.
Yes, 100%. And like a lot of times that's when people are coming to get another dog, is like, oh, we had this older dog, we got this puppy, they've grown up together. The older dog passed away, and now we need a new buddy for this dog. But this dog has only known that other dog. And so not only are they grieving the loss of their buddy and they don't have that companionship, but they don't know how to be appropriate with new dogs.
Yeah,
And you know, I'll just add one thing, because I've done mostly worked with the dogs from India who haven't come for a while, but we do have 4 coming in a few months. They have very a lot of like native dog behaviors are still very prominent in them. They're not as kind of, you know, so we haven't bred out some of those. And we with those dogs, and I have one myself and fostered a bunch, you really see they're good with other dogs when they're younger. And then about 2.5, like at age 2.5, they hit that sexual maturity, that point when they're like, oh, and even though they were fully socialized, some of them grew up in the rescue in India where they're actually in an open play area at all times. They couldn't be more socialized, even with new dogs coming in. But at between 2.5 and 3, they just hit a point where, you know, I got my friends and I don't want to make any new friends. And so we have to kind of be ready to coach adopters or in some cases fosters through that and say, hey, it's not going to be a dog who's going to be a dog park dog. And you just, you know, you have to know that up front. But the changes, it's much more noticeable in those dogs, in my experience, than in a lot of other, you know, dogs from here. So even the socialization doesn't always get you the dog who loves every other dog.
Right. Some dogs are going to be selective, and that's just the way it is. I mean, you know, I'm not a mall person. I'm not a party person.
Well, and quite honestly, most dogs are selective to some extent. You know, we talk about dogs have different play styles. So we have to accept that not every dog is going to like every other dog, and that's okay. And I think learning your dog's play style is something that's hugely important when you're looking to add an additional dog to your home, because knowing how they play and the type of play that they like is going to really help you select a new companion for them, because you don't want to stick a dog who's rough and tumble with a dog who just likes to play chase.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think that's a big, it's mostly fosters in the call here. That's just a big education thing that we need to do with adopters, that, you know, there is this stereotype that lots of people have, and I had it when I was younger too, that dogs love all other dogs unless there's something wrong with them. And it's just not, you know, it's not the case. And so people have to accept that dogs are individuals. So you don't expect every child to love every other child, or every adult to. And so getting people to understand that, I think, is part of our, you know, our jobs as a rescue group, to get people to understand like the complexity and all that. So
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I don't like every person I meet. I can be polite, I can tolerate them, I can pass them on the street, and that's really all that I'm going to ask of dogs too. You can have your friends, and you have to be genteel when you are going past dogs you don't like, but you don't have to stop and play with them.
Right. Good. Well, maybe on that note, that'll be the right note to end on. We're a couple minutes over time. Any final thoughts, conclusions from anybody? As you all know, probably everyone on this call knows, you can always reach Cinder and Krista through the training at ophrescue.org email, and adopters can as well. So all right, so thanks everybody. Thanks so much, Cinder, and I think we'll continue to have these every month.
Great. Thanks, everybody.